Welcome to the Celtic Exchange Weekly. This is Tino, and this week I'm joined by Miff and James as we once again cover all things Celtic. Miff, Celtic have scored 16 goals in 3 games, and Brendan Rodgers is the best manager we've ever had. Discuss.
Hello Tino, hello James, hello listeners. Nice and cosy just to see you this week. It's pretty phenomenal to watch, to be honest with you, and I think just that momentum that's carried through for the start of the season to now, the culmination where poor St Johnstone, managerless St Johnstone, absolute lambs to the slaughter, given the kind of crest of the wave that we're on, and them really toiling. So we went up there expecting to do a job, but I think what we've seen was just, absolutely phenomenal.
James, 35 minutes in, it's nothing each. What happened after that?
Just clicked. I mean, St Johnstone were putting up a good fight, and it's good to see players doing that for a interim manager and stuff. They were trying their best, and then we just found the breakthrough. And the momentum we had, the football we were playing, the way it was all coming together. It's funny, I heard you talking with Greg on the post-match, and you were saying, this player's becoming my favourite and that player's becoming my favourite and blah, blah. I'm looking through the team and going, I like every single one of those guys, There's no one that stands out as an outsider. It's a real team, and it's the team effort that got us the first goal, and then it was just floodgates.
You've beat me at the punch. It was one of my questions. So in the post-match with Greg Harvey we done yesterday, I asked him if he could pick just one player at this moment in time, who's the main guy for Celtic, who would it be? Because there's so many talented and likeable players on this Celtic side. So I'll come to you first, Miff. Who's your one man that stands out?
For me, I think since Rodgers has taken over, it has pretty much always been Daizen Maeda, and I think that's to do with his work off the ball as much as it's to do with the contribution on it. I think he allows us to probably play higher up the pitch, which Rodgers really likes. So when we win the ball back, we win it back in dangerous areas. But I mean, he must just be a manager's dream. There's so many different games this season. He's managed to cover about 3 different positions in the space of 15 seconds. And I know we all laugh about it, but for a manager, if it's like just that you see it in your head and you're hoping that somebody can go and cover a space. He just appears there. It's just absolutely fantastic, and I think he's just so lovable as well. He's so honest with how hard that he tries, and maybe technically at times he's fantastic. Technically, just look at his disallowed goals as an example. But technically at times they can maybe rush things. But for us and what we need, I just think he's so important. And listen, I know you'll be able to go back and go through. Our 2 fullbacks are exceptional, our captain's exceptional, our goalkeeper. The fact that there's absolutely no chat around him just tells you how well he's doing or how well he's been protected. Kyogo just can't stop scoring, all those things. But for me, Maeda is the kind of poster boy of the Rodgers era, second time round.
He's absolutely incredible, and we all seen him racing back in the 86th minute at 6-0 up to prevent, not even to prevent a goal scoring opportunity, to prevent any chance of St Johnstone getting forward. You mentioned Kasper Schmeichel, and rightfully so as well. I think it's at 5 now. He's made a huge save. There's such a focus on Kasper Schmeichel and his defenders, first and foremost, to prevent goals. That's their job, and there's a real pride in that just now, and the ongoing clean sheets is evidence of that. James, Miff's picked out Maeda. It's hard to argue, but there's plenty of others to choose from. Who would be your main man?
Again, it's early doors, but I suppose the way I'd look at it is the shift in this team in the last year and a half. Aaron Moy, great player, everyone loved him, is kind of now being replaced by Arne Engels. That is such a jump. You've got Abada, who I loved and was very popular and great numbers, replaced by Nicholas Quinn, who's just better, just considerably better.
And me saying Maeda, sorry James, but there was some screenshot posted on Twitter on Sunday, and it showed you Kuhn's last 10 games.
Oh, that's brilliant.
What is this?
I think it's 4 goals and 8 assists, something like that.
Insane.
12 goal
Absolutely
contribution.
insane. He just is one of those players who glides with the ball. He's fantastic. Again, an argument could be made for so many players. Yeah. So many.
But in terms of that shift, up in this team, that 6th goal Celtic scored was one of the most enjoyable goals I've seen in a long, long time in any football that I've seen, not just Celtic. And it's 4 subs that contribute to it. It's Baye, it's McCowan, it's Ida, who was the other one?
Don't know, just make one up, it's fine.
The other guy. But, so you're bringing guys off the bench that are contributing to scoring goals like that. That is a a telling sign.
Yeah, just on that goal, Miff, I was going to ask, was Celtic's sixth goal the greatest goal we've ever seen, or at least for a long time? It's Baye to McCowan, who could pull the trigger, but he's got the culture to lift it back to Baye.
I know who the fourth guy was.
Go for it.
Also Baye.
Also two Bayes. Again, he's so good.
I was
he does
going
it
to just
twice.
try and shoehorn James in there, just for no reason whatsoever.
But the culture that Baye shows at the end, he could have swung his right boot at it and hoped for the best, but he's got the class to drop it back.
I think very resilient of him, the way that he came on and expressed himself. He could have played it safe on so many occasions, but he actually, he showed a fair bit of flair when he came on, the goal aside, or the assist aside. But yeah, I mean, for me, that goal, we scored into that end at St Johnstone with a magnificent team goal. I think it was Musa scored, and there was a few. I think
Lustig and all
I
that.
think Lustig ended up doing a Rabona at some point or something.
It was a cross.
But for me, that was just you're sitting watching it, and I think as well, given the way that the game went, as the minutes were passing and we were free flowing and we were creating chances, and it's a Saturday night and the away fans are very well oiled. I know, for example, our bus left at like 11 o'clock or something like that, and we're in a CSC all day.
Got to beat that Perth traffic.
You know how busy it
Like
can
the
get.
tractors.
Those roads up to Pitlochry. So it was absolutely, it just everything just came together, and I think that added to it as well. The atmosphere just seemed to be getting more and more fervoured. So, fantastic.
You spoke about Baye coming in and he could have just played it safe. I would argue that any subs coming in just now for Celtic can't play it safe or can't really afford to play it safe, because if you want to play in this Celtic side, you need to be brave on the ball and do all the things that the manager wants you to do for you to have a chance. And Bernardo actually epitomises that. He's come in and he's just let loose. He's shown his full repertoire, and at the moment I think he's potentially edged ahead of Rio Hatate. I'm going to give you some stats because I know you love them, Muff. At the moment, as we all know from this season, 9 games, 9 wins, scored 33 goals, conceded just 4. So the averages, we now average 3.67 goals a game, and average goals conceded just 0.44 per game. But going further back, since losing 2-0 to Hearts at Celtic Park, way back now, I know, on the 3rd of March, Celtic have played 21 competitive games, 15 in the league, 3 in the Scottish Cup, 2 in the League Cup, 1 in the Champions League. All of those 21 games, we've won 20, drawn 1 and lost 0. It's incredible form.
It really is, and momentum's such a big thing, but we knew that. We felt that change towards the end of the season. I think it was 25 game run we went on to win the league, and we felt that, we felt something really clicked, and it took maybe longer than we expected or wanted, but when it did, it really did. We've gone into the summer, we've added real quality to the squad, and we've just picked that right back up again in the new season, and you're seeing it every single week now.
How much of it is down to your favourite guy, Brendan Rodgers?
Well, I think the only game of that run, if I think back, the only thing that springs to mind was the Aberdeen semi-final. We were pretty poor, or well, we were winning easily and let it slip twice actually, and we should have killed the game. But other than that, when I think about all the other performances, they've been really pretty dominant, and I just think the way we've started this season, all credit goes to the manager and the players, because it's all one thing having this identity and wanting to play a certain way and high press and we score loads of goals. Now that's brilliant, but the reality is, we face a fairly similar challenge every week in terms of the rhythm being broken up. To play that way requires rhythm, and the way the opposition generally attack things in Scottish football is to break up that rhythm, time wasting tactics, the ball not in play very often, low block, our favourite. All those things present major challenges to playing fast flowing football, because you need your team to get into rhythm. And I think it's to Celtic's enormous credit. Yes, we have spent money this year, which is fantastic. It's what we've been asking for. We've brought in better quality, but what you're now seeing is what you can do with that better quality, and that's why the product that we're seeing on the pitch has improved massively. And I dare say that's why your goals you're averaging 3.5 goals a game rather than 2 or rather than 1, because you've just quite simply get better players and a better team on the pitch. And I find it absolutely mad. I never ever thought I would sit here and realistically say that any time Rio Hatate was at Celtic, there would be a starting 11 that would be better without him in it. But that again is a reflection on the progression and the evolution of the team.
James, it's a real simplification there by Muff, but he's right. In its simplest form, the more good players you've got in the park, the better you will play. And I think it's clear that we've invested well in the summer. Arne Engels been a great case in point. Bernardo coming back as a permanent player. Ida coming back permanently to put pressure on Kyogo. Luke McCowan waiting in the wings for any opportunities he gets in the midfield. And I'm going to repeat what I've said in the last few weeks. It's a Brendan Rodgers-ism, but competition can often be the best coach. And I think Celtic are seeing the very best of that right now.
Yeah, and I don't think as football fans, you'd be terribly surprised to see that or hear that. That's just how football works. Better players with a good manager, obviously, generally play better football with the right structures in place. The key to this really will be in the next 1 to 3 years when we go through the evolution in the cycle of this team and some players move on and they move on for serious money. Then the Celtic board will find out that spending 6 to 12 gets you 25 to 40. Spending 1 to 5 gets you 10 to 20. If that turns out to be the case, and I think it will turn out to be the case, it'll become policy, and that should be frightening to every single team in Scottish football.
Who knew that spending a bit more money would get you a bit better players, man?
Well, and I've seen a lot of chat online as I've sort of said, well, who's commending the board for spending the money? I hear that they've been very quiet. I just can't take to that opinion at all. All we're doing is what we should have been doing. I don't think the board should be celebrated for doing what they should have been doing all along. Yes, they've eventually spent the money, but quite clearly the plan was to wait till the early money was on its way before they spent. That's the board's prerogative to do that, but we didn't need to wait. We could have sorted all our business out, and that aside, it goes back to that point. It's everything we've been asking for as a fan base. Is let's roll the dice. Let's get better players in the team than we already have, rather than expecting a couple of projects to land. And I think what you're seeing in Engels is straight away you're seeing that quality immediately. Just everything about him looks like a ready-made footballer. Mm-hmm. It's not you're waiting in a bed and period and this, that and the next thing. He's just there and ticking over the midfield, strong, good at most aspects of playing football, and it's just a joy to watch.
And he's only turned 21, James, a couple of weeks ago there. He just looks so assured as a player, and I hope he's here for as long as possible, but whatever happens beyond Celtic, he's going to higher levels, isn't he?
You can just see it. We've all watched football for long enough that when someone turns up, I was at Lubo's debut and you just went, aye, got something here. So when you get someone like that comes on, the minute you see him pick up a football and run with it, you go, aye, he's got it.
Quick question, Arne Engels or Connor Barron?
It's a tough one, isn't it?
Nico Raskan? Geese pace.
It's Daizen Maeda, mate.
You see all this nonsense doing the rounds. Now, Celtic have got a seriously talented midfield at this moment in time. If you're looking for an example of just how far Celtic have evolved under Brendan Rodgers' second time around, you just need to look back to the last time we played St Johnstone in Perth. It was last December, 1-0 down at half time. You might remember the headlines at the time that Rodgers said it was the angriest he'd ever been at half time in football, and he was asked about that on Saturday after the game, and he agreed, or he accepted, that at that time he and the players weren't on the same page, for whatever reason, right or wrong. And I think we could all see as fans, you were still getting decent results-ish, but sometimes the football wasn't great and it wasn't clicking. Now, Brendan Rodgers and his players, they're 100% the same page.
Yeah, but I do understand that it was a dip in our own terms. We're still winning games and still progressing. But when a character like Ange Postecoglou leaves your company, as in the players' company, that's a lot to take in. And we didn't really bring in any players that were blasting through the team and lifting the team, because it was just a bit of a failed transfer window. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't that lift as well. So you've got this new guy in, and he talks well and he speaks well. But I watched the end of the season DVD, and I think Rodgers is a master tactician.
DVD, bro, aye.
DVD, current VHS.
I don't know why we don't get any younger listeners.
I've seen some clips on the Facebook.
He's a master tactician, and he's a very good motivator. Ange is a master motivator. Mm-hmm. I think that if you want to compare their various traits, I do think Ange is just one of those people that lifts people. Yeah. I think Rodgers does, but maybe not to the same degree. So when you take that energy out of the room, that's really hard. So the fact that Rodgers picked it up, kept them going, managed to get his message across, just at the right time, and then we went flying, it tells you everything.
On that note, we as fans all felt the loss of Ange. It was a sore one to take, and you can only imagine.
Some still are.
Maybe. You can only imagine if you were one of his players, particularly one of the players that he brought in. I'm thinking of Kyogo's and Alistair Johnson's, Matt O'Reilly's, whoever. it's a hard one to manage, to get your head around if he's shown such faith in you and then he's off. And it's little wonder it did take a few months for the full Rodgers effect to take place.
Absolutely. It's just the emotion behind it, the psychology behind it. The players are human. And I think because Ange was such a large or a big personality, that it had more of an impact than it normally would have with a coach leaving. But also there's slightly different styles that Rodgers arguably a bit more controlled, dare I say a bit more thoughtful tactically when it comes to defending than necessarily that Ange was. But the main thing in all of that was Rodgers' experience, dare I say that experience of going back down south with Leicester as well and getting into that environment where they had won the league. He almost had to steady the ship and put his own mark on it. I think that stood him in good stead when he came back to Celtic, because rather than completely lose the plot, he just slowly played it into the players. And you mentioned a point there, James, it just kind of landed just in time. Yeah. Because it did get to a point where very rarely, and I will be on record as saying this last year, very rarely does the momentum halt when it did for us. At that point, normally it only goes one way, where the chasers catch up and then those that have been in top kind of fall away. It's to the players and the managers, all the backroom staff's eternal credit that they found the fight. And I think also added to that as well was, the opposition probably were pretty lucky at points just to be as close as they were. They'd been through an enormous amount of luck and ran out of that, as well as just not being good enough at the end of the day.
I made the point, James, when Brendan Rodgers came back. I suppose it's quite an obvious point to make, but he was a better and more experienced manager than the one who initially joined Celtic in 2016. He'd experienced ups and downs with Leicester. Won their first and only ever FA Cup, got 2 fifth place finishes and got them relegated as well. But they're all part of the makeup. They're all part of the experience. And I think he came back with just more in his locker. And I think we're seeing the best of that just now. Last point on the St Johnstone stuff before we move on. One thing that I was really pleased to see was Alistair Johnson wearing the armband, even if just for the symbolism of it all at this moment in time. He's a real leader in that team. So
this kind of harks back to you. Who's your favourite player? I mean, I've liked him since he came in the door. He's an absolute character, a warrior, loves a battle. It's one of his most enjoyable things. Even that one with Weiss the other week, he didn't need to do it, but he just absolutely flattened him, took his booking, and Weiss was out the game for the rest of the night. I'm the same. Great to see him picking up the armband, and he's somebody we need to get tied down. That's it. If the chat is that we're looking to give him an improved deal, and it's a long time coming if it is. He's a guy who's really impressed from day one. Do you see him as potentially a future captain, depending on what happens? Yeah, I do. We've mentioned this before when we talk about the sort of general model that the club works to. You do need a few of them to stick about. And if to me, Alistair Johnson seems one of those prime sort of candidates to stick about and see it out for a bit longer than the typical 2.5, 3.5 sort of years. So, yeah, I'm all for that. Very little gets given away down our right hand side when Alistair Johnson's playing. It looks like he really enjoys life at Celtic as well. And you never know, things can change. You might have ambitions elsewhere, but at this moment in time, he seems very happy, and we're seeing that reflected in what he's doing. We covered the 6-0 win over Perth. We didn't do that. We covered Celtic's 6-0 win over St Johnstone in Perth in great detail in the final whistle show recorded by Greg, who made his debut on the show. James, good performance. He was talking about it Saturday night that he was gutted he'd not made it on yet, and lo and behold, less than 24 hours later, opportunity knocks. So that's available right now wherever you get your podcast. I'd also encourage listeners to check out our recent episode with John Attenborough and his guide dog Sam. John and Sam recently became the first man and dog duo to visit all 42 SPFL grounds recently, and they've been on a crusade to raise awareness about accessibility in Scottish football. Miff, John is potentially the nicest guy I've ever met, even nicer than you, James, Paddy. Easily, hands down. He's a lovely guy. I look forward to that. And his dog John himself, Dundee United fan. That's all good. But Sam's a Celtic fan, Sam the Dog, and you'll find out the story behind that fantastic. If you listen or watch the episode. So you can listen now wherever you get your podcast, or watch the full episode on our YouTube channel. Quick favour, on the back of their achievement, John and Sam have been nominated in the Equality, Diversion and Inclusion category at this year's Football Content Awards. It literally takes about 20 seconds to vote for them, so please do so now at footballcontentawards.com/voting. Nice one. Okay, let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll crack on with this week's listeners' questions.
Welcome back, folks. As always, in this middle section of the show, we cover a couple of questions from you, our listeners. And if you want us to feature your question in next week's episode, then I'll let you know exactly how you can do so at the end of this section. This week's question comes from Matthew Scarf, long-time listener of the show. So let's hear what Matthew has to say.
Hi there, my name's Matthew Scarf. I'm a keen listener of the show. My question is, with Dortmund playing on Friday evening and Celtic not playing until the Saturday evening, is there any more the SFA can do to support Scottish clubs in Europe?
So thanks to Matthew for the question. Miff, I know this is one you were keen to address. You made a comment on it yourself. So what do you think? Is there more that the SFA can be doing?
Absolutely. There's more the SFA can be doing, but I think there's also more that Scottish football fans can be doing in understanding that, because ultimately we just view it as the advantage being gained domestically rather than it being gained in terms of for Scottish football overall at European level. And both sets of fans between Celtic and Rangers are guilty of that, because if they see something to benefit them in a European game but then benefit them domestically, it'll be seen as perceived as bias. So I think that requires us all to understand it and see the benefits in it. Somebody like Brendan Rodgers has been on record about saying, preparation time is very important to him when it comes to European games. So especially if you're playing on the Tuesday, Saturday night to the Tuesday, it's quite a short turnaround. So could that have been managed better? Yes. Why were we playing at that time? As much as the fans were enjoying getting scooped up all day. And Saturday, why are we playing at that time? Because of TV. So is there something else we can do around that? Is there more negotiation we can have? Could we have played on the Friday night ourselves? Those are the types of conversations that should be happening. But I think it's something we should be looking at as a nation, because let's be honest, we need all the help we can get.
James, on that, the coefficient is dipped recently, meaning that as of next season we're back to qualifiers for the Champions League, and generally speaking that can't be a great thing moving forward. So surely it's in the best interest of everybody in Scottish football, but led by the SFA, that we support our teams, all teams, Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, Hibs, whoever, wherever possible.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's too much kind of parochial animosity in Scottish football, where it's, that's the point you're leaning to. It's like, well, if they're getting an advantage, then we don't want that and all this kind of stuff. Whereas what we should be doing is taking a bit of a grown-up, broad look, and before season start, and saying, right, let's agree on some common sense standards, things that we're going to try and pursue as a collective. So things like maximum attendance, so no, clubs blocking fans out when there could be bums on seats and making money for the game. And with that driving the coefficient is a collective responsibility for all of Scottish football, all stakeholders, SFA, SPFL, all the clubs, and no one gets in the way of that and starts voting things down. If you take that as a starting point, you'll end up with a pretty decent result, I think. So it's something for me to start talking about now and getting in place for next year. I don't think there's much going to happen this year. Things don't really change in season. But yeah, and it really is. It's just a common sense thing if you can look at it like an adult.
I seen the headline again last week, and it kind of pops its head up every now and then that per capita, in Scottish football is the most widely supported across Europe. We're a football mad country. There's a whole audience out there. We obviously come at it from a Celtic point of view, Miff, but there's a whole audience out there to be catered for. And I think just some joined up thinking, some modern approaches by the SFA could see us in a better position.
Absolutely. I don't see that. If you look at more recent seasons where like Hearts and Aberdeen have been involved in group stage European football, I'm pretty sure they would come to the party as well in terms of exuding the benefits, because that schedule can be quite brutal, the Thursday Sunday schedule.
Just very quickly, well, I remember I was speaking to Ross at the weekend, James, on Saturday. He's a Hearts fan, and he says that they come back from Europe, they're playing Conference League on a Thursday night, and 2 of their games away from home, I think they come back, they're playing in Azerbaijan against Minsk, I think, Dynamo Minsk. And they come back from that, from a Thursday night, and they go to Pataudry. And I think they come back from another game and they go to Ibrox. And it just seems very harsh. I mean, our focus, as I say, is on Celtic, but you can sympathise with that.
But that's what I mean. I'm pretty sure most examples of us playing after a Thursday and a Sunday will be like 12 o'clock kickoffs in Pataudry, McDermott Park, whatever. It's fairly brutal. So I think the more we can give ourselves a chance in Europe, like I say, if the coefficient's been affected, and with Celtic's recent European record not being absolutely sterling, then surely that in itself is a sign that we need that bit of support. You can also go and look at the points that we made in the previous section of the show around the money that we spend and all those things. So we've done that part of it. So it would be nice if the SFA and fans of all clubs can see it from that point of view, that it will benefit us all if there's strong runs from Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen and Hearts in European football.
Will TV always dictate the scheduling, or at point of signing new contracts, can you maybe set your stall out and negotiate better?
This is really it. I mean, it was such a shocking decision to extend that deal, but they extend the deal with the same bullying caveats in place. So the SFA or the SPFL could justifiably say, well, that Saturday night game for Celtic can easily be a Friday night game. We'll make that a quarter to kick-off. There you go, that gives you an extra day. And Sky say, sorry, we've got Bristol against Doncaster on Friday night. You can't have that.
Easy,
you say, well,
easy.
I know.
Bristol fan are you here?
Bristol, the other one's
City.
Not City.
No Rovers.
No Rovers.
City.
Aye, Bristol Rovers against Doncaster.
Right, okay. Right. I get that off. Get that off. Pat that.
But why should that ever affect our game? If we've got an ideal to drive the coefficient, that cannot get in the way, and we can't be dictated to like that. That deal should never have been extended. They come out with this load of nonsense that per cap at the number of games we show, we actually get a really good deal. The money in the till is all that counts at the end of the day. It was a shocking deal, should never have been renewed.
Agreed. Miff, in the interest of the coefficient points, were you cheering on Rangers against Malmo last week?
No.
I heard somebody.
But that's a personal.
I heard somebody, don't know who it was, very harshly, I think, describing Rangers as our coefficient monkeys, because they were just going out and getting the points.
Was he in the room?
He might have been in the room. I wouldn't like to say, but it is about time Celtic started doing their bit, and we've obviously kind of started better this time around. But like a lump, we benefited from it.
I've seen a few of the posts for the boy that posts the follow chats and the seethe after last week is what makes this even harder to watch, is the fact we've done all the hard work, which is absolutely fantastic.
It's just the way these things go. James, final comments on that. Good question from Matthew. Anything else just to round that one off?
No, I think it's a great question. I want us to see you just derive that kind of thing, and it's very difficult. Celtic and Rangers used to have old firm tag, and that came about because they generally work together to get certain things in their own interest and maybe at the cost of the other clubs in Scottish football. But I believe relations are at such a low ebb given the mess that Rangers are at the moment from a business administration point of view. They'll be the problem. I think most teams could generally see the common sense on it, but Rangers should surely see their own interest in it as well. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh on them, but there you go. If they can be grown-ups about it and say the goal is the coefficient, let's all work together, then yeah, it's possible, but it's got to start talking now.
Yeah, agreed. But once again, thank you, Rangers, for the coefficient points. Question 2 this week comes from Danielle. Danielle is a long-term listener and supporter of the show, and it comes from the YouTube comments. So Danielle has asked, for our upcoming European games, should we be going with Callum McGregor and Bernardo double pivot, Miff? I know you like it. With someone like Arne Engels up ahead of that. Daniel's a big fan of Rio Hatate, but thinks that he makes the riskier passes, which at times could be punished by the likes of Dortmund, Atalanta and Leipzig, which is obviously our next few games.
Well, I think just given the timing of the question, the way that Bernardo's played in the last couple of games, he's probably played himself into contention regardless of the tactical implications of that. But I think it's an excellent point. I think that was why Bernardo was brought here. I think when we were predicting the starting lineup against Bratislava, I thought Bernardo would win because I think Rodgers sees him more as a European player than he does Hatate. That's my own personal opinion. So in answer to Daniel's question is yes, I think certainly for an away game that is the tactic that Rodgers will employ.
James, we're going to touch a wee bit on Dortmund in just the final section of the show, but do you think we could see this as soon as tomorrow night?
It's interesting. We've probably been seeing it already. If you go on Twitter, Adam Can, which is at XX, Adam KHANXX, has done a phenomenal piece of research on how Celtic play. And
if anyone can, Adam can.
Adam can. And we're 4-3-3, but we're 4-4-2 out of possession. And that's where you probably see 2 of the 4 sitting in a double pivot, and maybe Daizen picking up, and whether it's Bernardo or Engels on the other side. So it's probably already in place. It's just not as strict as you might imagine. It's not we're playing the game like this for the whole game. We're playing it like this when we're out of possession.
And I think that's the sign of a really decent side. There's a fluidity about what Brendan Rodgers Celtic do, and they can adapt to different circumstances. I was going to make the point that, you know, at the moment we are 4-3-3 very much with Callum McGregor generally sitting and two guys more advanced. And it would be unusual for him to line up, you know, overtly with two guys sitting, you know, McGregor and somebody with one guy more advanced. But actually, as James says, it's probably already happening. We're just not seeing it quite as rigidly as it might happen against Dortmund.
Yeah, I think it comes down to that understanding of what's required, really. In Europe, you know, quite often we've had the Ange approach of, you know, to hell with everybody, this is how we're going to do it. And that's fine to a point, because I think ultimately, firstly, we didn't quite have the players to play in that way. It was admirable that we did, and we probably, our performances were better by doing that. So it's okay to show that there's a different way to do it. That's great, but take that principle and make it a bit smarter. Make it a bit smarter based on the players that you do have. And arguably, since then, there has been an evolution into having a better standard of player. So theoretically, at least, playing slightly smarter with better players should yield better results. And again, I just think it's Rodgers getting things the way he wants them, both in terms of the staff, you know, the players that he's got, but cracking that code in Europe to get us where we need to be.
James, Ange and maybe Brendan Rodgers to an extent as well was accused of not having a plan B when it came to Europe. You know, plan B is do plan A better and all that kind of thing. And Brendan Rodgers has been on the receiving end of some tough results, you know, against PSGs and Barças and things like that. Do you think he's learned from those results? Do you think he's a more pragmatic manager this time around in Europe, or does that remain to be seen?
I don't think he wasn't being pragmatic. I'm thinking things like Tony Ralston playing right back as a 17, if not 18-year-old against PSG, and us on the end of an absolute doing. I think Rodgers' tactics that night were, you know, similar to what they might be today. The players are way, way better. You know, even Ralston himself would be a better player than he was then. I think we've just put better talent on the pitch. Yeah, there's a maturity in Rodgers' tactics, but at the end of the day, it's still a attacking football philosophy. The philosophy hasn't changed. There's just maybe a wee bit more carefulness around, you know, protecting the back line.
Plus, PSG had Suarez, Messi.
Oh, it was ridiculous.
Neymar, I mean, there's some you do get a pass on. even
on that. I was chatting to some lads the other day about.
Been doing a bit of chatting, hasn't he?
Blether.
I'm a chatty guy.
Aye.
But I was talking about the Celtic team that came up against that PSG side, and it had guys like Dembele and Rogic and Ncham and Brown and McGregor and Lustig and various really decent players. But do you think this Celtic squad just now is as good as that and maybe more balanced and a bit more depth?
Well, to take two players out of that, I'd say Ncham and Lustig were two very good players for Celtic, but they don't get into this team.
No.
Lustig was an admirable servant. Admirable. But I don't think he gets in ahead of Johnson. Maybe recency bias. I don't know. But who you kicking out for Ncham?
No, Ncham's problem was consistency. So nobody.
That's what I mean. But you know, these guys were in the team, rightly so at the time. I mean, Big Tam, probably the exception. I'd maybe make space for Big Tam.
There's always room.
I'd even play him at left wing back or whatever. I'd just fit him in the team. But my point being that just generally the standard of the squad's improved. But that's, to be fair, that's only really happened since the summer.
So just to push you on your point then, does Tam get into this team?
I would probably just stand on Bernardo's toe before kick-off so I can put him in.
Just any old excuse.
Yeah.
James, a valid point or a valid question here. Rogic, as much
How
as we'd
dare
love
you
it
call me out mid-podcast on that, you big swine.
in public.
Yes.
We'll not get Rogic back, unfortunately, but one guy who could feature, and we've not really mentioned him much tonight, is Luke McCowan. So we've talked about, you know, is it Hatate, is it Bernardo? It's certainly going to be Kalmak and Engels plus one other. But I think Luke McCowan has shown that he's got something to say about that, and you know, with each passing performance, it's looking a really shrewd piece of business. And a lot of folk were saying, he'll be good covered domestically, he'll allow a wee rest for McGregor, a wee rest for everyone. He's not here to give guys rest, he's here to take their shirts, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a midfield that at least it's debatable if Tom Rogic should get into. So that's the competition that McCown's up against. But he's come in when he gets his chance, and like you're saying, you can't just dial it in. When you get your chance, you got to take it. And he's shown all of his talents. I mean, that ball he put through to Bailly, the intelligence, the invention in that. He could easily just, give that to a teammate, keep the move going. No one's going to give him a hard time for that, because, he could also just have a shot at once. He goes, no, I'm just going to just loft this, and it's just dropped on his toe. It is beautiful football.
It's class. It's as good a goal as you'll see all weekend and then some. Great question from Danielle. So in conclusion, I think we might see something close to that, but it might be something they're already working on as part of the different options that Brendan Rodgers' Celtic side have. A big thanks to Danielle and to Matthew for their questions this week. If you want us to cover your question on next week's show, then it couldn't be easier. Just visit our website at thecelticexchange.com, click the send voicemail button on the bottom right corner of the page, record your question, and we could be featuring you on the show this time next week. Alternatively, you can email me, Tino at thecelticexchange.com, if leaving a voice clip isn't your kind of thing. Okay, let's take another short break. When we come back, we'll do this week's Mystery Goal Scorer. Welcome back. We'll begin this final section of the show, as always, with our Name the Goal Scorer feature. The rule's very simple for anyone who doesn't yet know. We'll play a clip from a notable Celtic goal, but the goal scorer's name has been beeped out the commentary. All you have to do is name the goal scorer. Before we kick on, let's reveal the answer from last week by playing the clip in full.
And I think the substitution from David Gray just gives us an insight of how he sees the game. He's not quite content just to sit for 1-1 and hope not to lose.
Kyogo in again! How good is that? A phenomenal finish from an unbelievable player. Kyogo, a star is born at Celtic.
If you nailed it last week, you said the boys play this frequently on YouTube.
Yes, they do. And I think it's just the fact that it stops Craigan in his tracks. He's getting at the big one. Oh, Hibs aren't going to settle, and then just as he's coming up with it, bang. And is the commentator Rory Hamilton? Is that who it is?
Okay.
Is it?
If you want. I don't know.
Hamilton? I don't know. But he's went early on Kyogo there in terms of, because that was just quite the early part of the season, but November, December time.
If you remember rightly, he came back from a hamstring injury to be fit for that game. He played that game. He won us that cup final. So it was a League Cup final, December 19th, 2021, yep. Celtic 2 v Hibs 1. And he then missed a number of games after that. But he came back. I think we already knew Kyogo was going to be a star at that point, didn't we?
It was just that, it's one thing doing it and then doing it in the big occasions. A double on a cup final to win your team the cup when we really needed it. Ange needed a shot in the arm really at that time, didn't he? Because there was still a bit of pressure around him. We were on a great run, but there was still a bit of pressure around him. So just everything about it, just you were actually starting to believe and see what was building, and Kyogo was just such a focal point and all that.
There was a great wee clip from after the game where Kyogo jumps into Ange's arms. It was like something out of Dirty Dancing. He jumped in with his legs are in him and they had a wee moment together. But at that point, James, as I say, we already knew, but Kyogo was and continues to be a star for Celtic.
Yeah, I mean, I think by that stage we knew we had something special in our hands, and I believe the medical team are like, we're not giving him the okay, and Ange asked him and he said, I'm playing, and that was it. And without him, who knows what could happen, because like you said, Ange just needed that boost, Yep. There's a lot going on in that whole day in terms of, it's a cup final, it's post-COVID season, it's Ange's first trophy, Hibs celebrating their goal and still celebrating when Kyogo equalises, and then, is that the goal I've still not seen because it's clouded and fog.
Which makes it, that adds an element of mystique, which is fine. You can barely see it through the fog, they're letting off firecrackers. His first goal is class, and the second goal where he lifts it over the goal, it's just brilliant stuff, and we've kind of become used to that from Kyogo. A couple of really decent goals again on Saturday night there. So his record for Celtic now, Miff, is 77 goals and 17 assists and 140 appearances, including those two from Saturday night, and he's just been a hero for Celtic from the word go.
A phenomenal signing, and someone who has played an absolutely massive part in the success we've had since he's joined. I just love watching him. I think, you go to the games and we sit behind the goal, Old Rangers End, and when you watch him, he's just perpetual motion. Absolutely unbelievable football. I
mentioned this from the post-match from Saturday. His headed goal, his second goal of the night, he's offside, and then just at last second he jukes back in. He's so clever, and defenders don't know what to do. If they want to go deep to cover him, he'll go the other side. He must be a nightmare to defend, and he's just been brilliant, and hopefully that continues.
Although that goal, Neil McCann says it was offside.
Well, if Neil says,
the outstanding bitterness is just fantastic.
It was onside, but not onside enough. Just 1 point on him. The Dortmund managers picked him out today as something to someone to watch. And it's about exactly what you've just said. His football intelligence, his movement, the things that we see a lot as fans. You know, when you're particularly when you're at a live game, you know, you're watching his movement. You don't necessarily get that in the TV, and it's obviously been picked up. But he also said he hasn't seen much of Arne Engels. He'll see a bit of him tomorrow night.
He certainly will. But you're right. He picked out Kyogo as the main man, and why wouldn't you? Okay, let's take a listen to this week's mystery goal scorer. Let's play the clip.
Here's Tino with the first searching ball in. That's dangerous. Oh, he's got them up to the perfect start again, and it's for Celtic.
Claudio Bravo's wrong-footed. What a finish! What a mistake! What a game!
So a couple of wee clues in there.
I am going to go for
Absolutely correct. I like the pause for dramatic effect. It was really good to hear.
I think that'll be good for the camera.
Makes for good listening. But you're spot on. As always, what we'll do though, Info will reveal the answer in next week's show. We'll also share the clip on our social media channels for anyone who wants to have a go there. To close out the show, as always, we'll be putting out our full match preview of the Dortmund game. We'll be doing that on Tuesday morning ahead of the 8 PM kickoff. But news has broken today. You might have heard it, I'm sure, that Cameron Carter-Vickers hasn't travelled with the squad and won't take any part in that one. So 2 big questions for you lads just now. One, how do you feel about a centre-back pairing of Liam Scales and Austin Trusty? Trusty's got his own hashtag Trusty the process. All right. And number 2, would you take a draw if offered it right now? Come to you first, James.
I would be much more comfy if I'd seen more of Trusty. He was fantastic on Saturday night, but we know the opposition's toiling. But he's playing alongside Scales, who, you know, is good in these situations. You know, playing against a team away in Europe definitely lends more to Scales' skill set than playing at home when you're attacking all the time.
Liam Scales picks up a Champions League Man of the Match award every 3.5 games.
I know.
2 in 7 games, Smith.
So, and you know, they've shown they can play, you know, alongside one another, even though Trusty, I think, is still predominantly left-footed.
He is.
But he came out quite the thing on Saturday with the ball. Now, don't get me wrong, we'd all much rather a Carter-Vickers and a left-sided centre-half in there. And let's be honest, again, that would be Trusty. That's why he was signed. But I think the 2 boys have shown that they can pair up, you know, quite well. And I think we will lose goals, but I think we'll score a lot of goals. I think we'll win by scoring goals, not by not letting goals in.
Do you think we will win then?
Yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah.
So question 2, would you take a draw? No.
Just to head that one off at the pass.
All out for the win. What's your take? What did you think of Austin Trusty, first of all, on Saturday night, and how do you feel about him?
Yeah, look, reasonable enough. Again, hard to judge because we weren't under a great deal of pressure. But for me, we seem to have been a bit unlucky with our centre-half pairings in the Champions League because Starfelt and Vickers didn't really get the chance to play together very often, and it's another example of fate conspiring against us. Would have been nice just to have Vickers and Scales in there as they're settled, but listen, that's why Trusty was bought, so that it's him that's playing and not Stephen Welsh. But with all due respect, you know, Stephen Welsh, good squad player, but for this level, we've brought in somebody, an international player, that's there to take Vickers' place. So that's again it shows the benefit of going spending the money and getting the experienced players in. But I think it's a bit just real bad luck that we've not got Vickers there, because the great thing about Vickers is if we are playing and we are on the front foot, Vickers has got the pace to get in and cover when he's doing his one-on-one defending. So it'll be interesting to see Trusty in those positions. But listen, we go there in hope.
Yeah, do you know, and Vickers himself, I'm disappointed for him because these are the games that he wants to feature in, and he's earned the right, James, given what he's done for Celtic so far. But it is what it is. That's why you've got a squad. That's why you sign Austin Trusty, so that you get decent cover at centre half. I was exchanging comments with someone in the YouTube channel, or the YouTube comments, and he was still keen for Mike Nawrocki to be given a chance. But I don't think he's going to get much game time. I think Brendan Rodgers has seen enough of him at Lennoxtown and in the few appearances he's made to decide that he is 4th or 5th choice at best. It's got to be CCV, Liam Scales, Austin Trusty, and then it's Welsh and Nawrocki, isn't it?
The big thing, if you put Trusty and Nawrocki, you know, and just match them up and say, right, what are their differences? Physicality is what Rodgers wants. He wants athletes that can take the rough and tumble and give it out as well. Apparently, Nawrocki's biggest problem is he can't take that. He's found the Scottish game really quite physical, and that's where he's struggling. And now he can maybe build himself up to that, but he's not there yet. The incident on Saturday where the goal chalked off, and there's nobody at any fault, it's just two guys running at each other. Carey, was it, from
Carey.
From St Johnstone. Strusty's going one way, Carey decides to run the other way, and they clash. But what I would say is he's ran into a brick wall in Trusty, and that is what Rodgers wants in his centre-halves, big, strong, physical guys. So Navrotski's not in the picture there yet.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think he's potentially just narrowed out, isn't he? He's filling a squad place at this moment in time. If you conveniently duked the question, would you take a draw if offered
yes,
right
I would.
now? Would you really?
Yes.
Yeah. That said, are you optimistic about what Celtic can do? You think we can score out there?
Yeah, I'm saying that, we have a tendency to do this where, we win games in our domestic league. I know we beat Bratislava, but ultimately we should be, in my opinion. We're going away to last season's finalists. Sometimes we've got a tendency to do this, just kind of go a wee bit beyond. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with dreaming and wanting to go and scud Dortmund their own patch. Absolutely. But the reality is, if we get a point for this game, it leaves us in an excellent position. So, what I'm saying is, would I take the point right now, knowing that what's to come? Absolutely.
Yeah, from a maths point of view, it makes perfect sense, James. We've got Dortmund, Atalanta away, and then Leipzig at home, and that would take us to the halfway stage, 4 games out of 8. How many points do you think we'll have on the board by then, and will we have enough to potentially go on to qualify?
10.
10?
10.
Jeepers. What, 3 wins and a draw?
I think we'll win tomorrow night. I think we'll draw Atlanta, and I think we'll beat Leipzig at home.
I was pushing back on guys telling me to calm down and hey, don't get carried away. You are off.
James is gone.
Too late.
He's gone.
10 points out of 12. Okay, who do you think will get in the final? Math, what do you think? What kind of the possible 12 points, how many do you think will?
6 or 7 probably. I would like to think anyway, and I'd be delighted with that. If we've got 10, even better.
Yeah, 6 or 7 would leave you in.
10 is better than 7, definitely.
10
is it?
Yeah, I checked it.
It would
breaking news. More breaking news.
It would leave you in the driving seat though for taking care of your last 4 games. So it's all there for Celtic, and ultimately whatever will be in Dortmund. But it's a really exciting one to look forward to. Math, do you see it as a free hit as such? Is that the way you're looking at it?
Pretty much so. It's just relaxing having those 3 points in the bag. For so many seasons, forever we've not had that luxury.
Never had it.
So we've done it. That's our side of the deal's kind of done. Now we can go away, and hopefully that just gives the players that confidence where they can go and express themselves in some really tough venues.
James, when we're looking at it here from a fan point of view, we can see it as a free hit. Just go there, whatever it'll be. Brendan Rodgers won't be going there with anything less than taking a positive result back, draw a minimum, if not a win, because his reputation's on the line. He's reached out to his board and says, I want you to break the bank for Arne Engels and for Daizen Maeda and everyone else that's come in this summer. It's now his job to say, okay, you've got me the good players, I'll now get you the results in Europe. And there's always a pressure at Celtic, but there's no doubt a pressure tomorrow night for him to get a positive result.
That's really where I take my confidence from. Rodgers sees himself up in the top 10 of managers in Europe. And he can only.
I think he sees himself in the top 1.
Top 1, maybe better. Mm-hmm. And he can only be there if he goes and gets results in these ties. So we know he prepares like no one else, and he'll be so fully ready. But it's what's already gone before, and the way he's got these players playing. See, when a team is playing with confidence, like this team are, they're pretty unstoppable. And when it's not false confidence, when there's real talent in the team, and you've had a challenge like Bratislava, which was a challenge, you've overcome it with some aplomb, and they've gone on, won that, kept it going in the league, heading over there. I just think it's all falling together for Celtic. Now, we're up against a really, really good team, albeit a team in transition, but I think it'll be a high-scoring game, and I think we can do it.
I think as well, if you look at the Feyenoord and the Atletico performance before Maeda gets sent off, you could see we were enjoying periods of possession and elements of control in the game. I know we ended up getting tonked 6-0, but circumstance was more to do with that than anything else. My point is that the blueprint's kind of already there. We've seen, you've mentioned there the tactical tweaks earlier, Tino, and the blueprint's kind of already there as to how we're going to play. What's quite exciting is that we're going to now do that with a more confident and better squad. So fingers crossed that it produces the results.
Math mentioned the word momentum earlier on, James, and I just think that's huge. It's 9 wins from 9, we've talked about it, and I just think listen, and we know Dortmund are a good side, but it's going to take a very good side to halt what Celtic are doing. There's just a real confidence surging through the side, and I think every time they take the park, whoever they're up against, I think they're just thriving on whatever the next 90 minutes are, and that just happens to be Dortmund on Tuesday night. So it's a really exciting one to look forward to. As I say, we'll have the preview out on Tuesday morning, but I think for the most part we just can't wait, and I'm sure the players will be feeling exactly the same. James, it's been a long show, plenty of things to cover, but your own final comments as we head in to another exciting week.
I'm just really glad it's tomorrow night, no Wednesday, because I'm feeling very happily anxious about it, just been, it's been coming for a couple of weeks and stuff like that. Big game, probably the biggest game we've had in a while, because there's a bit of expectation on us now, and if we can match that expectation, I think the sky's the limit for this team.
If he's feeling anxious, but he's still giving us 10 out of 12 points, imagine if he wasn't feeling anxious.
No, I know, and part of what I love about being part of Team TCE is the bullish confidence that you have approaching every
utterly
single
unfounded bullish confidence.
Celtic game. It's like absolutely no problems whatsoever. Celtic victory. Let's move on. So
6-0 Madrid.
I'll always feel a bit reassured after I've been in your company, lads.
And that's a nice thing to say. Miff, your own final comments, take it away.
Well, the hope for me is that the momentum continues. That's the thing now. That may come in different forms. It may by taking a point and a good performance, maybe even, and I don't want this, but I'm just saying, even a narrow defeat with a good performance, with a controlled performance, with being in the game for large periods. That's what I'm looking for tomorrow. An improvement on what we received last year, or what we seen last year in the Champions League is really what I'm after. Now, how you measure that, some people just say it's as simple as points in the bag, and I understand that, I take that, but with the better quality that I feel that we have, I'm just hoping to see that wee bit more for the team. So fingers crossed the momentum continues, but it's just such a great and exciting time to be a Celtic fan. The games can't come quick enough.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see what we do against Dortmund. So that wraps things up on this latest Celtic Exchange Weekly. Thanks to James and Miff, and thanks to you for tuning in. We'll be back this week with pre- and post-match shows for the big one against Borussia Dortmund on Tuesday, as well as for Sunday's 12 noon kick-off at Ross County. And don't forget to check out the CelticExchange.supercast.com, where you can help us bring you even more Celtic this season. But in the meantime, as always, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again soon.